Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of contemporary romance and kick-butt heroines in dark fantasy worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking to a fabulous author who is known for her steamy romantic comedies, including books such as Let's Get Textual and Puck Shy. We are talking to the one and only Teagan Hunter. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great now that you're here because I am so excited to dive into your world and your mind and figure out where it all started and how you became the awesome brand that you are today. So take me back to the start of the journey. Why did you start writing and how did you find publishing for the first time?
I started writing. I've always liked to write a little bit. I used to write fan fiction, like way back in the day, about like the bands that I used to listen to. I know it's kind of goofy, but I used to write that, and it was always really fun. But I got out of the habit, and my husband joined the Army National Guard. And he's like, I want to be in the military. This is what I want to do. And I was like, okay, I guess this is going to be our life now. Let's do that. And while he was gone in basic training for that, I was like, you know what? He's chasing his dream. So why don't I go ahead and chase one of mine that I've always had, which is to write a book. And so I did. I wrote a book while he was gone. And then I was like, oh, I guess I could publish it. So I did. And the rest is history.
First of all, how long did it take you to write that first book? And what were some of the hurdles that you found while publishing for the first time? What year was that in?
So I wrote the book in 2014. I published it in 2015.
Okay, cool.
So it
How
was a
did
long time ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because 2014 as well is when I first published, and so I do
Oh,
refer
wow.
to that time as a
Yeah.
very different time. It was very, I would like to say, more accessible and organic to readers.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
there's a lot more happening that we have to keep up with. So, at
Yeah.
that time, though, there wasn't as much information about self-publishing as well. So, how did you stumble and pick yourself up and figure out, actually, let's write a book too as well after that?
I actually was already involved in the like publishing industry behind the scenes. I was a cover designer. I went to college to be a graphic designer, and my teacher she was a published romance author, and she started her own cover design company, and she recruited me to work for her. So I worked in the publishing world on that side, but in addition to that, I worked at an independent bookstore. So I worked in the publishing and book world on that side. So I was lucky enough to have some people behind me who were able to give me a lot of insight with like indie publishing and all of that stuff, because I was surrounded by authors, in like the cover design world and in like the bookstore world. So I was really lucky to have like those kind of pioneers to help me along the way.
Did you find that having also that background as well, you already had an element and understanding of branding and marketing, like you really knew what to look out for?
Yeah, yeah, I felt like I had kind of a better grasp on it than some people did. I mean, I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means because I'm not. I've definitely stumbled along the way, but I felt that I just kind of had a little bit more of a leg up on that aspect of everything.
So when did you then see that snowball effect for yourself when you started realizing, oh, a lot of people are actually starting to buy my books. I'm a real author here. When did that happen for you?
That happened in 2017 when I published Let's Get Textual. It's the first book in my texting series, and it's a new adult romance. It's really goofy and fun and random, kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I think then is when I was like, whoa, this could really be something. And oddly enough, that was actually like I was at this point, I had published, I think, like 4 books at the time, and I was like, this is really expensive. This is really hard to do. Um, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it like one last good push. Maybe I'll write this book for as a freebie for my newsletter, and then maybe it'll like spark me and inspire me to write something else. And so I did that, and that book ended up being Let's Get Textual. And with the encouragement of some of my author friends, they were like, you cannot put this in your newsletter. You have to like actually publish this and put this out there for everybody. I was like, okay, I guess. And then I was like, you know what? This is going to be my last like big push of like trying to be an author. And if this doesn't take off, if this doesn't do something, then I can't afford to keep publishing and doing this. And lucky for me, it took off and it did something. So I think that was really like the moment where I was like, I could make this into something. It's going to be hard and it's going to be a long journey, but I can actually make this into a career if I wanted.
Do you know what I find interesting about this is I have heard multiple versions of this story before in the sense that because it is expensive and it's so hard and it's so taxing on the individual as well. I've heard a lot of authors say, this one, I wasn't sure what was going to happen with it. I just decided to write whatever, have fun with it as what we call now a passion project. And every single time I hear this story, that's the book that went boom for them. So do you think it's when you do really just relinquish to the process and go, I started this because I love doing this. I'm going to refine that love for it and just see where it goes. And then that's usually what takes off. Would you agree along those lines?
I definitely agree because it's happened twice to me now with Let's Get Textual and then again with Puck Shy because I had after the texting series had come out, I had 2 other series that just didn't really do what I thought that they were going to do. And I was feeling really, really bummed, like really bummed about it. And it was really hard, but I was like, I think I'm finally going to write a hockey romance series because I'd been really nervous about it because I loved hockey and I was really scared to turn my love for the game into money. It was difficult to make that decision, but I just kind of sat down and I was like, I think I'm finally going to do it. And I started writing the book, and it was one of, other than Let's Get Textual, I think it was probably like the most natural and easiest book for me to write because it just felt really authentic to me and who I was as a person and the things I was interested in. So when I published that and that took off, I was like, oh, maybe I should really start writing things that I mean, not that I wasn't excited about those other books, because I was, but there was just a little bit more behind it.
I'm curious, and what are some of the conversations that you've had with yourself? Because this is a really challenging, mentally challenging career path to take because, we are by ourselves in a lot of this. And obviously, we have our tribe, we have our supportive authors. And sometimes it's really hard not to compare to them as well and think, you're so
Mhm.
amazing, you're so incredible. And ironically, they're usually looking at us in the same way and thinking, wow, look at all these things you've achieved. What are some of the conversations that you have with yourself to overcome when you're having those hurdles of self-doubt or wanting to throw in the towel? What are some of the things you do or say to make sure that you don't?
Um, I think one of my favorite things to do, especially like if I'm feeling like I'm gonna fail, this is gonna suck, this is gonna be so bad, is I go and I read 1 star or 2 star reviews from some of like the biggest authors out there, and I'm like, you know what? They've gotten these reviews before too, or they've had these times and they've struggled. And if they made it through it, I can make it through it too. And that's just something that I do is I go and I look at like past releases from other authors and I'm like, well, this one didn't hit as high as their other books. And I don't know, I just kind of I remind myself that just because, this author is up at the charts right now doesn't mean that they've always been there and they've worked hard for it too. And I just really it's funny because we always say like, comparison is the thief of joy. And while I agree with that, sometimes it is helpful to go and look at other people's like careers and stuff and just see that it's going to fluctuate. It's not going to always be up here and it's not always going to be down here. You're going to kind of go back and forth. So I just take the time to remind myself that I'm not alone in it.
Uh, I think honestly, like that's why I love doing these interviews because I think too often we look at only the success of
Mm,
particular people or authors. And we know more than anyone. It's like the old iceberg. You see the tip, that's the success, and how much work goes underneath.
yeah.
And I think sometimes when we are in that doom and gloom mindset, we forget that and we just look and go, they must have got this immediately. And so I love doing these interviews because it shows that process and those ups and those downs and how we are today. And there's still going to be ups and downs. That's the like most exciting
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
Like, no more. I can't take any more. But we're suckers for punishment. No, I'm kidding. With your graphic design background, do you do your own covers?
Some of them, yes. I made the covers for the texting series, like the guy versions of them that are out there. I literally just changed them. But I made those. I did the covers for my Slice series, my redone covers for the Here's Two series, my um pretty much all of them up until I got to the Carolina Comet series, and I was like, I feel like I need to outsource this, just because I was really busy and I was writing and working on a lot of stuff, and so I did, and that was really the first time I like gave up that control, and I'm continuing to do it because it's taken a lot of pressure off of me because it's a lot of work because I make all of my own graphics for everything. So there were days where I was sitting here making like 20 to 30 graphics and I'm like, I need to write on top of this. This is a lot of work. So I had to outsource somewhere.
Yeah. What is some of the tips and advice you have for authors who are also outsourcing and how to express their vision for what they're after on their cover? Or do you just suggest giving the concept and giving the artist free range or being very specific in elements? What works best for you?
I think I feel like there's like two different ways you can go about it. Like you said, either giving them free range or kind of being more little hands-on about it. I think the biggest advice that I can give is if you don't like something, don't be afraid to say it. Like, don't be afraid to tell your designer, hey, I'm not feeling this. This isn't what I want. Obviously, do it in a professional way. Don't just be like, hey, that's trash. I'm not feeling that. But be like, this really isn't, lining up with my brand kind of thing. Um, but I really think that's like the biggest piece of advice is find somebody and take a deep, deep, deep look at their portfolio to make sure that you like, 90% of the covers that they make, and then, form a relationship with them. And hopefully you get to the point where you can be like, do whatever you want. I trust you, but find that balance between relinquishing some control, but also not being afraid to speak up for what you want with your brand, because at the end of the day, it is going to be your name on the cover. So you're the one who has to be proud of what you're showing people.
100%. And I think it's a learning lesson for almost everyone on the first time when you have to say, sorry, I don't really like that. And as you said, it's not a bad thing. You're just aligning. And I even find for myself, there'll still be elements that I'll like, and it'll make me visualize and go, actually, I like this and this. Maybe if we tweak this, and then it may come back and you may think that is Picasso right there. That is perfect. So
Yeah.
never be shy to say professionally. I completely agree with that. Would love to talk about your new release that's coming out. So that is Body Check, which is the first book in your new series, Seattle Serpents.
Yes.
Tell me more. When is it coming out?
The it releases on September 7th, and I am so very excited for it. It is the first book in a brand new series. The team it's a new team, but it's kind of in the same world as the Carolina Comets, and there's definitely going to be some crossover characters, some fun interactions with the characters from the Carolina Comet series, but it's a new team, new characters. It's it's just so fun. Kind of revolves around this group of guys on the team. They're the only single ones left on the team, and they're determined to stay single. So they kind of make this pact of like, hey, let's stay single until we win the Stanley Cup. And of course, it's a romance, so that's not what happens at all.
I love that. That's so fun. I want to talk a little bit about sports romance because it's one of the ones that really intrigue me because I'm curious as to where the line is in the sense of information, factual information, the jargon that's used when I'm not a sports person, as you can tell. So I'm curious as to how much you put in there, or do you focus more on the romance itself? Where is the balance for you? What advice do you have for writing sports romance?
I think it's really hard to find a balance if we're being honest, because you don't want to use too much terminology that like non-real life fans of the sport aren't going to understand, but you do want to use enough to engage with the people who are fans of the sport and who do know the sport. So it's really hard to find kind of like the happy medium of it. I try to put at least like one or two like actiony like on ice scenes, and then I just kind of like build it from there. And obviously, the character, the hero is an athlete and he plays this professional sport, so it takes up a lot of his time. And I try to put that in the story in a way that's not boring or like nobody wants to read about it. But I try to like mesh that in with whatever's going on and keep it consistent, like what the hockey player actually would be doing during the season and that sort of thing. So it is hard to find a balance, but I feel like it's possible.
So another thing I'm very, very intrigued about is romantic comedy. It
Uh-huh.
scares me because I could not imagine or I feel like you would have to have a confidence as well to be like, oh yeah, people are going to find this funny. Like, have you ever had that doubt or that moment where you were unsure as to how it's going to be received?
I have with Let's Get Textual actually. I almost did not market it as a romantic comedy. It took Sarah Nye, who is an author, it took her encouraging me and convincing me to market as a romantic comedy. And she pushed hard to get me to do that. But I didn't want to because I was like, I'm not funny. This isn't funny. Nobody's going to laugh at this. I'm the only idiot who thinks that this is hilarious. Like, just me. She's like, no, I'm telling you, just do it. Just do it. And I did, and it worked. And a lot of other people found it funny too. So I don't know. I just kind of really started incorporating that into my brand and my books, and just really letting my own sense of humor kind of like flourish in my books, and it kind of expanded from there.
It must be so nice discovering elements of yourself like this because I think it's very different acknowledging that you're hilarious in real life because I also think I'm hilarious. But then putting that in your books as well, like it's a completely different element. So, and I am envious of anyone who can pull it off because it's just such a natural flow and it's so witty and it's so smart and I just love it. So, I mean, you don't need my tick of approval, but well done.
Thank you. Thanks. It's funny because people always ask like, where do you get your inspiration for like the funny scenes and all of this stuff? And it's a lot of it is pulled from everyday conversations that I have with my husband or like people around me. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm going to use that in a book. Or it's just me sitting here thinking about like how would I respond to this if like this person was like sitting next to me, like what's a snarky thing I would say back to them to like get them to make them laugh or whatever. And then I just kind of like go for it. There's a lot of times though where I'll put something in there and I'm like, whoa, that's too far. Let's take that down a notch. And there's a lot of editing that goes into it, but yeah, it's interesting, and it's funny when people come up and they're like, you're so funny, and I'm like, Thank you. I think I don't really know, but thanks.
Thumbs up, cool, thanks. So what does your 9 till 5 look like then? Do you have scheduled writing times? Do you use X days for marketing only? Do you have to light a candle and sing Kumbaya before you write? What's your process?
I am kind of sporadic. I sometimes I will write a book at a coffee shop and I will only write the book at a coffee shop. And sometimes I will write the book from home and I will only write it from home and I won't go out into public for like a week at a time and just be solely focused on writing. I wish I were more disciplined to have like a certain like writing schedule, but I usually just kind of like mess around on my computer and doing like social media stuff or anything else behind the scenes admin that I need to do. And then I'll be like, you know what, I should probably write. Then I'll pull up the document and I'll get lost for a few hours. And I'm like, whoa, I guess I should go eat something.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
A little column A, a little column B. I usually have like the meet cute set and then the climax and the ending, and I kind of like fill it in from there. Um, Sometimes though there are books that are like definitely a lot more plotted. But sometimes it's just that's all I have of it, and I just kind of go from there. I don't know.
How do you go with deadlines?
So
It's none of us want to be asked. It's like, yeah, it's always a panic.
I wish I could say I am amazing with them. I hit them all every single time. But that's not true at all. And you can ask my editor. She will probably watch this and be like, Teagan, tell the truth. You were always in my inbox being like, can I have a few more days, please? Because it's true.
I feel that so hard.
I'm so bad about that.
Just kidding.
Yes. It's it's hard though because some days you're just not feeling it. And then some days that day will turn into 2 days and then 3 days. And then you're like, I have to get back on schedule. I have to fix this. And then you do. And then sometimes you'll hate what you write. So you have to go back and fix it. And I I I would like to say I'm really good at meeting my deadlines, but and I try really, really hard, but sometimes it's just not possible. But luckily I have a really good team behind me that's like, it's okay, we'll make sure it happens. Don't worry.
That is a very honest answer. Thank you. But I mean, a lot of us eat the same basket too. So I hope that this also normalizes, that situation around. And I think too, one thing that we really have to take into account is our health as well, because I know
Yes.
for myself and a lot of author friends that really gets pushed aside trying to meet these self-imposed deadlines that are really
Mhm.
cutthroat. Been there, done that so many times on burnout. So I am curious if burnout is something that you have experienced, or thereafter, what are the things that you put in place to make sure that you're not going through that again?
So I've definitely been in burnout before, for sure. It's it's so hard because sometimes I feel like you don't even recognize that you're going through it until it gets to the point of no return and you're like, crap, I've just wasted, 2 weeks of not writing because I've been so burnt out. I've been distracting myself with everything other than the things I need to be doing. I honestly think the biggest thing is to just give yourself grace. And it's really hard to do. It's really hard for a lot of people to do. It's hard for me to give myself grace, but there's no way in hell that I would ever tell somebody who comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm really tired. I'm not feeling good, or I've had a migraine for 3 days. I would not look at them and be like, you need to sit down in your chair and you need to write 5,000 words for me today. I would never, ever, ever do that to anybody. So why am I doing it to myself? Like, I just really think we all need to extend like the same grace that we would to somebody else to ourselves. And we're so bad about that.
100%. And I feel like we're very good at giving advice and
Mhm.
not taking it ourselves. And I
Oh,
wonder if it's that cross mix of, because we're chasing our dream, because we want this to be as big and magnificent as possible, that we're like, no, just a little bit more, just squeeze a little bit more, squeeze a little bit more. But the ramifications are so huge that, for example, the first time I burnt out, it took me a year to be able to get back energetically where I was. And I almost went into hospital. Like it's very, very worst case scenario. And I've had
Yeah.
smaller patches of that since. But it's not just to sleep for a week and you're fine situation. So if you're open to it, are you able to explain to us a little bit about that first time you had burnout and the lengths and ramifications that it had?
Yeah, so it was during the pandemic. We lived in South Carolina, and we had just moved there in September of 2019, so right before the pandemic happened and everything. And there was just a lot of stuff going on in my personal life and in like my professional life. And I was like, you know what? I got this still. Like, no big deal. I can still do this. I can handle this. And I pushed myself for a really long time in ways that I should not have pushed myself. I was staying up for like 3 days at a time to make deadlines. I was I was working so many long hours with no breaks or anything. It was very, very detrimental. And I I didn't have any like hospitalization stays or anything like that, but I was very depressed. I was like very, very depressed in some pretty heavy ways. And it took my husband kind of snapping me out of it for me to like really look at myself and be like, whoa, we have to fix this. And so we bought a camper van. And then I kind of took a little bit of time off of writing, and we spent a couple of months renovating it. And we drove across the country to Washington State. We sold our house on the road. We drove back to South Carolina, packed everything up, and we moved. And that whole adventure, that whole life change was exactly what I needed to respark all of the joy that I had lost somewhere along the way and just pull me out of the total funk that I was in. So it's been like night and day difference since we moved here in October.
I love that because it's exactly that. You get to a point where you hit that, unfortunately. And I know a lot of people who are watching this will resonate with it so much. Or for those who are watching and haven't yet experienced it, please be aware. But it's sad because you, as you said, you funnel down into that rock bottom, that depression, and you don't even realize you're getting there, or you're just so ignorant to the big blinking signs that are like, you need to sleep, you need to have a day off. But
Yeah.
I mean, and I love also that your result of this was also kind of a stressful situation and selling the house on the road and doing this and that. But I mean, it worked for you, and that's fabulous. I love that you went on this incredible adventure for yourself and were able to get your spark back.
Yeah, it was really hard to like just leave everything for 3 weeks and just kind of be on the road and not really have stable internet access or anything like that. But I honestly think that getting away and literally forcing myself out of my comfort zone was exactly what I needed to just find the joy of writing, the joy of living again, and just being a person who wasn't attached to their computer at deadline. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, but obviously it was not fun getting to that point, but I'm glad I'm out of it now.
We live and we learn. And
Yes.
it's like not everyone gets back out of that. So this is why I'm
Yeah.
so much about it, because some people hit that and they just can't bounce back. And so it's really not fun. Like I think in this industry we have this workaholic tendency, and
Mhm.
I, I'm calling myself out as well. Like, but we go and we go and we go because we can see the sparkle, we can see the shine. We want to provide for our readers, but in whatever way, shape, or form you can, definitely take time out for yourself. That's something I'm so like, do
Yeah.
it. Would you say then your biggest challenge in your author career has been so far and your greatest accomplishment?
I think the biggest challenge would just be finding a balance between life and being an author, because it's not, I mean, I am an author and this is my life, but I also have a life that's not authoring. if that makes sense at all. I really think it's finding the balance. And even so many years later, I'm still struggling to find that balance sometimes because all I want to do is, work on this and work on that. And the to-do list is like never ending. But then I'm like, I should probably not work for 30 plus days straight and maybe take a break somewhere. So I really think the biggest struggle has been finding that balance because it's a unique and odd industry. So there's not really like a set like, oh, you have to work Monday through Friday 9 to 5, this is what you do. It's just really finding the balance of it. So I That's definitely been the greatest challenge. I think the greatest reward has been I'm meeting so many cool readers. Like I really think that that's one of the coolest things about this is just being part of a community that's really niche and probably again really strange. But I think that's honestly one of the coolest parts is just meeting people who get you on that like certain level that other people don't really get you at.
Yeah. What would you then say the most surprising thing you found in the industry was? Was it that community, perhaps?
I don't having been involved in the like bookish community a little bit beforehand, I knew it could be like really strong and really awesome. As far as surprise, I don't know. I feel like I'm not surprised by anything anymore. I'm just like, oh, whatever. It's Tuesday. Like the government just announced there's aliens, and I'm like, okay, what's your point? Like,
Like I
it's
could write that 20 books time.
yeah. I'm not quite sure. I'm like surprised by anything, which is probably not a good thing, but I'm a millennial, so I'm jaded anyway.
I want to know what your advice is. What are your three top tips or three things you do consistently on every book release?
Oh no. Three things I do consistently. Turn it in late to my editor.
I mean, you've been honest and consistent here, so I appreciate your editor's going to appreciate it. Shout out to what was your editor's name?
Caitlin.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you for that. uh, Three consistent things. I really don't know. I feel like I have a checklist, but even sometimes I forget about I have a checklist and I'm like, I didn't do half of those things. And that's probably really bad to say, but it's true.
Do you find
I
that
don't
that makes it a unique experience for each release, then that you are just instinctually going with what you feel like you need to do at the time for that book?
Yeah, I feel like because the industry is changing all the time and there's so many new things popping up all the time that I do have like a certain like set of things that I do like I'll do like countdowns for the release like leading up to it or like some things I post on social media I'll do or a newsletter or something like that. That's all pretty consistent stuff, but as far as like other like marketing tactics and stuff like that, I try to change it up a little bit some with every release just because the industry is changing so much that it's hard to keep doing the same thing and getting the same results.
What do you do marketing wise? Are we dependent on TikTok, Facebook ads, Amazon ads, something alternative, newsletter swaps? What have you found that has worked for you in the past year?
So I signed with a PR company. I think it's been more than a year now, but I work with Valentine PR and I've worked with other PR companies before, but when I found Valentine, I just reached out to him and I was like, hey, this is what's kind of going on, and this is what my career's looking like now, but this is what I wanted to turn into. And they were amazing. They were very receptive. They were just fantastic. And they were like, we want to bring you on board, one of our clients and everything. I was like, that'd be great because I don't know what I'm doing half the time. And this is, so many years into this career. Uh, but I let them kind of take over with a lot of like my marketing and everything. And I feel for me, it has been worth it. And I know not everybody has the same feelings about PR companies and stuff, but I truly, truly feel like that with the combination of finally writing like hockey romance and like this series and this new kind of subgenre that I'm really excited about, and working with Valentine has been really the biggest push that I've had in my career, and like the biggest change that I've had that's really made such a big difference for me.
Yeah. Because one thing I want to highlight too is, there are always trends or a genre that suddenly everyone's just really focused on and loving, and hockey romance is one of those at the moment. So would you
Mhm.
say that you've definitely over the last few years seen that influx happen all the time when a particular genre is trending, you're noticing the sales in your hockey romance as well?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a big push for hockey romance lately, which is just wild to me. But I feel like sports romance just in general has always had a really big and dedicated following. I just feel like hockey has really been at the forefront of everything lately, which is great because I love hockey in real life. I'm a huge real life hockey fan. So I'm like, great, read the books and then go become a fan of the sport and go to the games and let's make this, really like the greatest league ever. And that's I don't know. That's kind of where it comes from on my end. Is just, yay, I love hockey. So that's why I wrote hockey.
So really, you're just like building an empire of hockey fans for your favorite team.
That's my secret goal of all of this.
So how do you tackle this is such a tricky beast. Social media, yay. How do
Yay.
you how do you tackle it? Do you have a preference or any lessons learnt over the years when it comes to social media?
Yeah, so I used to be way more active on social media than I am now. And I think a big reason why I cut back was just when I was going through that horrible burnout and everything. It was easy for me to ignore social media, so that's what I did. And then I kind of realized that I don't need to constantly be on there. And not that I'm ever involved in drama, but let's be honest, we all like to watch it happen. So
Always
I
have
don't need to be, yes.
I won't be involved, but I'll watch. I'll be like, wow.
Yeah. I was like, you know what? I don't actually need to know everything that's happening. And I feel like that is one of the good things that came out of like the burnout of me not having to be at all on it all the time. I have a reader group on Facebook that I love. I spend a lot of time in there. I actually don't even have a news feed on my computer, like my desktop or anything. I have like this extension that like eradicates the news feed, so I can't even see it. I can only access groups and stuff, which is really helpful for me because I'm not distracted by anything else that's happening on the internet. It's just what's in my group. Um, but other than that, I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I do have some people who post on social media for me, especially on like my Instagram and stuff like that, my TikTok, because I just don't have the time for it anymore. But I'm always, even though if they're like posting as me or whatever, I'm always in the comments interacting with people. So it's not like it's just some random person doing it. I'm still there. I'm just not up at like 5 o'clock in the morning making my first post of the day.
I love to, as you said, obviously when you had your burnout, you went off social media slightly. And I think this is another healthy thing. So I have recently done this, which is a social media detox, because I think that there is mental strain and there is stress
Mhm.
around wanting to be more accessible, especially when you're trying to do multiple platforms. And it just kills the joy in it. And I
It does.
completely am a believer that if you are not happy in what you are putting through, then that shows it's not going to take off. You just become harder on yourself because it's not doing what it needs to do. And it focuses a lot more attention and time on that than the actual writing and working itself.
Yes. Yeah, and for me, giving up the social media and letting somebody else do like the posting and stuff for me, it's made it more fun again. So when I am interacting like with readers and stuff, I'm like, oh, this is like really fun, and I don't have to worry about is this post, perfect or is this whatever. I It takes that stress off, and it's it's been really helpful. I've only been doing it for the last few months, but it's been total game changer because I'm not worried about anything like that. I'm just worried about writing every day and getting that done, and then going on whenever I need a break and be like, oh, let's check out the comments and all of that. I even turned off my tagging on Instagram. I have it like really, really refined because I was just getting tagged in a bunch of things I didn't want to be tagged in, like reviews and stuff. And I turned that off. And I think it's really important to set boundaries. It's hard to set boundaries on social media, but it's really important to do it, especially if this career is going to be long at all for anybody.
And I think too, boundaries is such a, I love that you use that terminology because it's really important for us to protect ourselves as well in that sense, because I think we have this understanding and belief, and it's not either right or wrong, it's just up to the individual, that we have to make ourselves completely accessible, that we have to give everything and be transparent. And I think we need to give ourselves permission that it is okay to, as you said, turn off notifications to be tagged. And I think a lot of people are hesitant to do that because they think it's going to somehow affect their career. But if it is taking a mental toll on you, you need to reevaluate whether you can do that for the next 10 years. If you don't like being tagged in things or reviews or things like that, just bite the bullet is would be my advice bouncing off that, because I think it's really, really
Yeah.
helpful. This is my favorite question to ask. What is the big goal? What is the dream that you were chasing for your career?
So there was something that I was chasing for a really, really long time, and it happened, and I can't talk about it yet, which is really exciting. I can't talk about it yet, but it did happen. I think my next goal after that is to, well, I have two. I would really like to see my book in like a bookstore. I've been tagged in photos that it's happened, but I've never personally seen it, and I want to personally see it. And then I would like to hit number one on Amazon. I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, but it would be amazing.
So, Will, we're going to make it happen. I love this. And now I'm just like, oh, I can't wait for that announcement to come up. I'm so I have a segment called Speed Dating with an Author. So I've lit a candle, I've created ambience, but basically what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Amazing. You're like, okay. What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
I gave myself a concussion on my birthday last year.
Oh, pray tell.
There was something on the floor, and I was bending over to pick it up, and I was near a like TV console, and I guess I lost my balance and I fell into the corner of the TV console and like split my head open and gave myself a concussion.
Did you go to the hospital?
No.
We stitched it ourselves. We were fine.
Yeah, it's all right.
Keep drinking.
No.
Okay, good. Okay, that was a smart answer here, but I wasn't too sure, to be honest.
No, I was totally sober. I lost my balance, and it was actually probably like the third time that week I had hit my head, which is again not a great thing, but yeah, I just lost my balance and fell over right into it.
Is this why the books have become quirkier over time or no?
Probably.
What are the 3 words that best describe you?
Loyal, caring, and funny.
I love that. What is the song that best describes you?
What is the what?
The song that best describes you.
Oh, jokingly, I'm just a kid by Simple Plan, but for real, I would probably go with Me by Taylor Swift.
Okay, I love that. This one's going to be a hard one. Who has been your favorite character to write and why? And you can only choose one.
Zach Hastings from Let's Get Textual.
Okay.
And because he is nerdy and hot and hilarious, and he's, I don't know, kind of like my dream fictional guy.
Amazing. I love that. And this will be the last question. So, what is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
I would say graphic design. I don't really advertise that I do it or anything like that. I think it would be graphic design, and the fact that I've designed a lot of my own covers. I've designed covers. I've designed hundreds, if not 1,000 covers in my years being a designer. So I think it's that one.
I have had so much fun today. Thank you so much for coming on and let us know where do we find you, including your Facebook group if you're happy to add that. And yeah, what's coming out.
So you can find me on Facebook in my Facebook group, Teagan's Tidbits. It's really fun. It's low key. It's super easy. I'm also really active on Instagram. It's at Teagan Hunter Writes. And then I have a website, which is teaganhunterwrites.com, where you can find all of my books and all of the good info about me. And up next is Body Check, which comes out September 7th. It's a hockey romantic comedy that launches a new series. The heroine is a billionaire. The hero is a hockey player and he's super hot. There's a one night stand. There's goofy text threads, all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I'm going to right after this. I'm excited. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And who knows, we might see where you go, where you're at in the next couple of years, and might get you back on.
Thank you.
Right. All right. Bye, guys.